All right, let's dive right into this explainer and completely rewire how we think about consistency and high performance. If you've ever felt like you're constantly fighting your own mind just to stay on track, or if you've been wondering why some people just seem effortlessly disciplined, well, you're absolutely in the right place. Today, we're going to look at the actual mechanics of the brain's operating system. We're going to see how success is actually trained, not just inherited. Because honestly, it isn't about trying harder. It's about training smarter and setting up a foundation that practically does the heavy lifting for you every single day.
You know, we constantly look at those super disciplined people, the ones who always seem to crush their goals, and we just assume they were born with some special spark. We think, oh, it must be natural talent, or they have an endless well of motivation, or maybe just pure luck. But what if that's entirely wrong? What if they don't have a superpower at all, but simply a better set of instructions running in the background? So here's the real secret. Underneath all that visible success is a deeply trainable system. Your brain isn't some fixed, rigid machine. It's incredibly adaptable. It's actually a lot like navigating a neighborhood map in Karachi. The more you travel a specific route, the more familiar, faster, and just flat out easier it gets to navigate. Well, your brain does the exact same thing with your habits and reactions. It powerfully strengthens whatever you practice the most. So here is the roadmap we're taking today. 1. The myth of natural success. 2. Your brain's operating system. 3. The success feedback loop. 4. Building evidence for confidence. And finally, rewiring your identity.
Starting with Section 1, the myth of natural success, unmasking the magic. Let's see how this builds a completely different understanding of what it really means to be naturally good at something.
If you're always asking yourself, why don't I have any willpower? Well, you're buying into a massive myth. The myth that your brain is a fixed machine permanently stuck relying on fleeting motivation. Let's look at the reality instead. Your brain is a highly trainable system built on repeated routes. We really need to stop asking why we aren't gifted and start asking what our brains have actually been trained to do. Think about it. If you spent years practicing avoidance, your brain is gonna make avoidance super easy. But if you practice focus, focus literally becomes your automatic default.
Moving right along to Section 2, your brain's operating system, looking at habits, learning, and thinking. Let's break down these 3 core components to see exactly how they dictate what you do every day.
First up, we have habits. Think of habits as your brain's default settings. They act exactly like the autofill on your smartphone. You know when you start typing a text and your phone just predicts the next word based on what you usually say? It's doing that to save you energy. Your brain does this exact same thing with behavior because it is absolutely obsessed with conserving fuel. Bad habits aren't a lack of knowledge, and they definitely aren't some moral failing. They're just a stronger default setting that your brain uses to completely remove the friction of making a choice. Next is learning. Learning is how you actually update that mental map. It's kind of like breaking in a stiff new pair of shoes. At first, they feel really awkward, right? They might even cause a blister. But with repeated use, they shape to fit your feet perfectly. When a new task feels slow and takes a ton of effort, you aren't failing. Your brain is simply experiencing the friction of comparing new patterns against old ones so it can build a faster, better route. And finally, we have thinking. Thinking is the active manager of your attention. Picture an airport traffic controller. They aren't down there actually flying the planes, but they sit high up in the tower and decide what should happen next to avoid a total disaster. And this brilliantly explains why old, bad habits get so incredibly loud when you're stressed or tired. Because thinking is a highly limited resource. When that traffic controller steps away for a much-needed coffee break, your brain has no choice but to default right back to its automatic autofill habits. When you look at these 3 forces together, you can really see how they overlap. You've got habits saving you effort so you feel like, hey, I did that without even thinking. You've got learning updating the map, and thinking carefully choosing the direction. Real progress isn't some dramatic overnight movie montage. Not at all. It's built in these steady, small cycles where thinking actively directs attention, learning updates the map, and habits lock it all in to save precious effort for the next round.
All right, Section 3, the success feedback loop, how we move from action to expectation. Let's look at the actual mechanics of how this system trains itself through continuous feedback.
Look, success isn't just a single spark of genius. It's a loop. And honestly, it's often a pretty bumpy, uneven loop. It starts when you notice a situation. Then you choose an action. Next, you repeat it. Over time, that choice starts to strengthen the neural pathway. And finally, you expect that outcome as your new default. Every single action you take gives your brain feedback. It's constantly teaching your brain whether a pattern is safe and worth relying on next time.
The ultimate goal here isn't just to take action, but to fundamentally change what your brain completely expects to happen.
I absolutely love this quote because it is a total game changer. Frustration is often the feeling of a brain updating its model. Think about that. When you try something new and it feels terribly awkward, that unevenness isn't a flaw in you. It is the literal physical process of your brain leaving behind comfortable certainty to forge a much better path. So embrace the friction. It literally means your system is actively learning. Section 4. Building evidence for confidence through repetition with purpose. We are now entering the phase where we stop just hoping to magically feel confident and start mechanically building it from the ground up. You see, confidence isn't some magical personality trait you're just born with. It's a solid prediction based on real evidence. To build that evidence, your brain needs to touch the system from 3 distinct angles all at once. First is doing, physically performing the behavior to make the action easier. Second is noticing, building deep awareness of your patterns so you catch them much sooner. And third is reflecting, understanding and adjusting to help your brain update its model. Taking action without awareness is incredibly slow, and just reflecting without actually taking physical action, that provides zero proof to your brain. You have to do the reps, notice the patterns, and adjust.
Let's ground this with an example. Imagine a busy student in Karachi trying to balance demanding exams and family life. The old default is waiting to feel ready or motivated to study. And we all know how that ends, right? It almost always means procrastinating until pure panic and stress take over. But the new expectation is built very differently. By repeatedly beginning just a short 10-minute study session, even on low-energy days, they're taking action before perfection. They build undeniable evidence that waiting to feel ready is entirely optional. They shift their confidence from a lucky, fleeting feeling to a proven, highly reliable prediction.
And that brings us to our final stop, Section 5, rewiring your identity, moving from a passive hoper to a system builder. Let's lock in everything we've learned to transform how you view your own potential. The absolute biggest takeaway here is the power of repeated structure. You want your habits to drastically cut down the sheer number of decisions you have to make every single day. You want learning to ensure that the decisions you do make are high quality, and you want thinking to act as a sharp, reliable steering wheel right in the moment. When these 3 forces align, you make good behavior fundamentally easier to access, long before your brain ever gets depleted of willpower. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Your job is no longer to sit around waiting for motivation to miraculously strike from the heavens. You know the exact mechanics now. Your job is to actively read the feedback, use your internal traffic controller to guide your attention, and consistently build the repetitive patterns that make your success inevitable. The operating system is yours to program. So what's your brain's new default going to be?